Okay, we're probably about live. Can't see it on YouTube yet, but any minute now it should kick in. Three waiting. Here we go. Okay. Right, so welcome to Color Space Cadets, and this time we're talking about awards, and in particular the FilmLight Colorist Awards. And we have a very distinguished panel this evening, so without further ado, let's get some introductions. Wade, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Wade Odlum. I'm colorist and partner at Alter Ego in Toronto, and was one of the judges on the FilmLight Colour Awards this year as well.
That's right, and you were a winner before, were you?
Yeah, I won the commercial category at the show last year, so it's great to be a part of it again this year.
Very nice, cool. Thomas, welcome back.
Nice to see you, Kevin. My name is Thomas Irby. I'm the CEO and senior colorist here at The Look. We're a London-based post-production company, and I was nominated last year for Landscapers in the drama category. So Kevin's invited me on today.
Indeed. And Ahmed?
Hi, my name is Ahmed Sesi Gürgil. I'm currently based in Istanbul. I'm a cinematographer. I was privileged enough to be a jury this year on the Color Awards. It was an incredible experience. My first time.
Okay, well, very welcome. Always good to have cinematographers on Color Space Cadets. And Anna, also a winner.
Hi, everyone. I'm a colorist based in Toronto. Yeah, winner of the music video category last year, and also a judge this year.
And welcome to everybody. So before we get started on the FilmLight Awards, what's the general feeling about Colorist Awards on the whole? Because there's not that many of them. There's basically the main ones are the FilmLight Awards and the HPA Awards. There's a new one from Dehancer, which is specifically for Dehancer users. But wait, how's life changed for you since awards? And why did you enter in the first place? What's the reason?
I think it's interesting with awards. Like, there was never a lot of options for color awards, and it's certainly not a part of the industry you get into if you want to win awards. That's not, color is not for that, but it is nice to be recognized for the work that you do and the team around you as well. Like, it's not just the colorist that that is sort of the finishing touch. There's a whole lot of people who get to that point, and I always consider any award that the cinematographer wins as partly, won by a colorist as well, because I find that, they work so collaboratively together. But it is nice to have that recognition. And I think what FilmLight have done with these awards is great. Like, I really love the idea that it's open to everybody all around the world, any platform. And I think the really cool thing is it's free to enter, and you can only enter one thing per category, which I think really makes people kind of like, is this good enough? Is this my best? Go through and, because it's very easy just to put in a whole lot of things. But in this situation, you really got to think, what's my best commercial, my best, music video, best feature that I can enter this year. So I think they've done a really good job of curating an awards show that means something to people, but also is high quality.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Thomas, what do you feel about awards?
Well, I think so. I did Landscapers, and that got the Royal Television Society Award for Picture Enhancement, which is the UK focused one, which obviously meant a lot. With the FilmLight one, it's more peers. So it's kind of, cinematographers and colorists, it's international. So it's a little bit more, I guess, of our little sector, as opposed to the RTS Award was, I was along with all the best directors and all the rest of it. So very, very different experience. I think the FilmLight Award probably great to be nominated, great to win it. I don't know how much impact it has on me winning work per se. Maybe with DOPs, I think it would do. But the RTS Award obviously is very helpful because you get this big award and everyone kind of knows it, and you can sort of plaster it. So I think the awards are helpful for different sectors of the people that you're trying to appeal to. So whether or not they actually win you any more work, I don't really know the answer to that. I think the work, your general portfolio is probably more important rather than just one off. But it's fantastic to be nominated or to win an award by people that have watched it, who are colorists or cinematographers, and go, out of the international, of all this work, we think this is the best. I think is a real privilege.
I remember Bob Fester always said, the only award I'm really interested in is the paycheck at the end of the month. That's enough for me.
I mean, you can have an award and not have any work. It wouldn't be that great, would it? And sometimes, like in film and TV, when people win BAFTAs and stuff, they then don't work for 2 years, and they can never quite work out why that happens. It's like this curse of winning an award.
The curse of winning, yeah. And what about the HPA Awards? Do you feel that's too American, or is that something that you look at as well?
I've never entered it. So I think it has very poor visibility here in the UK. I don't. I'm sure some of the other colorists have entered, but you do also rely a little bit on the production company. That helps, actually. I've found that when you're supported by a production company who have said, we want to submit you, you seem to get a lot further than if you write it and send the check yourself. There's something about that. And no one ever wants to submit to HPA. All you get from Sky and all the others, for me, in the world of mostly television, the production company say, we want to submit it, we'll pay for it, we'll support it, could you write stuff about it? And the HPA just does not come up there.
Yeah, well, we talked to everybody about entering for awards just in a minute. But Ahmed, as a cinematographer, does it have value to you? Does it help you choose a colorist, for example?
I wouldn't say it directly like that. I would agree with Thomas on that. Like I think overall portfolio and relationship affects that more, I think. But it was an incredible learning experience for me. And also it was a great meeting all these people and sharing problems and workflows and all that. And overall, I think the awards is priceless in terms of color awards, because I think color itself is a growing and shining star of the industry more and more. I think a lot of process we follow to achieve the final look of a project, my thing is being reversed and revised constantly. And that's exactly what I experienced throughout this process, speaking to all the cinematographers and all the colorists in the process of judging this. It was a really steep learning curve for me. And I actually ended up revising how I look at the color.
Yeah, that's good.
The process itself. So for me, it was an invaluable experience, and meeting all these people, finding out their insights. Especially, we had few conversations towards the end, like we came together as the whole jury group. Those Zoom meetings were incredibly valuable for me too. So yeah, it was an incredible experience for me, brand new. I never had to compete, or naturally not compete, but judge also a color award. And yes, it was a wake-up call for me in many ways.
And how do you feel about awards in general? Do you, I mean, there are more cinematography awards than colorist awards. Is it something that that you cherish, that you'd like to win an award in one of the categories?
I'm not a competition person, like I am not in that game, to be honest. But recognition, yes, exactly. I think what we do for audience, and there is no one way of reaching to an audience. So yes, awards is incredibly good for recognition. And in terms of color awards, again, I'm going to repeat myself, but it's a shining star of this industry. It's a growing industry, and we need to change our mindset about it. We really need to learn to appreciate it. We really need to learn to isolate it, which was difficult for me in the process, like to isolate color from cinematography, production design, and all that, makeup, costume. I think it goes all work hand to hand. And why not give awards to color while we are giving awards to each individual department? So yes, I truly appreciate it, and I'm really honored to be a part of it.
Okay, we may come back to how you separate color from everything else, because I think that's an important point. Anna, what's your feeling on awards?
I mean, they're like, it's a bit, convoluted, because at the end of the day, like, accolades will be accolades and whatnot. I think, the good thing about this FilmLight Awards is, the biggest thing really is helping to create, and like, not only create, but to make this community wider, right? Which is something that's so niche and so many people don't know about. I mean, for me, I haven't been around for that long, but I see the difficulties in how, people kind of, reach out and ask, oh, how can I do this? How can I become this and whatnot? And I've been through that too. So it does a great job into, like, again, making this community wider, making it more accessible, more well known, and not only that, you're being, your work is being judged by peers, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that does separate it from anything else, I think. So that's always especially nice recognition. Tell us a bit about the entry process and how you went about. What made you decide to enter in the first place?
I mean, I had missed the first one that they did, so I felt a bit bummed about that, and I almost missed the second one, like last year, to submit. I literally submitted the last hour, last day, and I only submitted one project, which ended up being the one that won. And to me, it was more. It was a really special project, given the context, the relationships that were built, in that process and whatnot, and it felt the right one to choose. But I was not organized when it came to, getting everything together to submit.
And did you submit it yourself, or did you get help from a production company or somebody else?
No. I did it myself. Yeah, I think it's it feels a bit more special when you get to, like, again, like Wade mentions, have a bit more intention behind what project you're submitting. Really, thinking behind why you're doing, why you're submitting that project specifically. So yeah, just more intentional behind it.
And has it changed your life?
I don't think so. I mean, it was just a great experience overall, to be able to go there and experience the awards and talk to people and connect with people. In that sense, yes. Again, opening doors in the sense of, like, being able to interact more with this community. But other than that, we're just chipping away day by day.
Same old, indeed. What about the categories? I'll go back to you, Wade, because there's one colorist this year that's managed to get into 3 categories, is nominated in 3 categories, which is quite impressive. Do you feel the categories are well spread, that they allow everybody to enter, or are they still exclusive?
No, I think it's great that it's able to be entered by anyone. And I think especially the spotlight category, I think, is a really clever thing that they've done, because for a filmmaker on a low budget, it's hard to get any recognition for that. And it's hard to get recognition when you work on those sort of pieces as well, because there's, when you're competing against the big players, the huge budget movies, they've got so much more time and money for color and things like that. So I think to kind of isolate the spotlight category, which is low budget features, and be able to enter that and compete against an equal playing field of people. I think it's a really clever idea, and I think that's what's unique about this, in that it does separate from other award shows. And I think, like, to Thomas's point before about saying, like, production companies entrance and things, that's where I feel like with the FilmLight Awards, it's the artist is entering, they're choosing their work, they're doing a breakdown, they're writing a description. There's this certain pride that you can take in it. Whereas often, it's like, I'm just going to enter this award, this award, this award, this award, and you send stuff out. So, when it comes to music video, again, that could be entered in under anyone, high budget, low budget. I feel like in low budget ones, you can really do some cool stuff. But in features, there definitely was I feel like there was a need, there was a missing level for lower budget features to compete. So yeah, and I think judging that category was really interesting to see what came through and the quality of work on movies that you probably wouldn't have got the chance to see otherwise. And for those people to get the recognition and the effort and the quality of what they've done to be recognized.
Yeah, I mean, I think in many ways the low budget categories, and I include music videos in that, are the most interesting, because that's very often the toughest from a colorist point of view in terms of the amount of work that has to go into it.
Yeah, I think it can be, it's difficult with anything that is lower budget, because expectations, sometimes they're lower, sometimes they're incredibly high, and people want everything for nothing. But I think with just enabling a way that you can enter things against a level playing field, I think is really good. There's a lot of award shows where, you look at stuff and you're like, that looks like a spec spot. I don't think that was, but somebody entered it and you're like, well, hang on, was that a real job? Could you get that past a client? Like, could you get that look for that spot past a client? Which, judging the commercial category was a big thing for me. It's like, wow, I think you actually managed to get a great look, a great spot, and you got it sold through. That's an achievement, on its own. So, there's a lot of things to take into account, but I think that what FilmLight have done in this situation is, they've started to make it a playing field that can recognize everybody for their different parts of the industry.
I remember when Colorist Society was looking to set up award systems, one of the things that we were interested in promoting really was originality. Did you find that there was a lot of original ideas coming through, or it was a repeat of rearrangement of existing ideas?
No, I think it was interesting. There was a lot of different looks depending on which category we were in. And it was interesting, like the feature category, when we got down to the finals there was some, vastly different looks. And there was some discussion about, is this good? Is it bad? Is it? So I think it's, it's interesting like that. And then part of what people could do was submit in their own words, a description of what they did, but a breakdown as well. And I found that interesting to sort of see people's references, what they were trying to achieve, how they managed to get to that look, and the thought process behind it. I've judged other awards in the past, and it's just a case of, okay, is this good? Give it a number, and then move on to the next and the next. Whereas this one, I found like everyone on the panel really thought about what it was, because there was a description there. And interestingly, being judged by only cinematographers and colorists, I thought gave a different perspective on that. It was a real craft-based judgment, as opposed to cool ad, I give it a high mark, or cool movie, high mark. So yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. Thomas, what do you, when you have how do you go about entering? Do you have a look through your portfolio and say, well, this is what I'm going to submit, or do you get a feeling about something that you just feel that you want to push forwards, and it starts that way?
Well, I think I should back Anna up by saying I dread it, and I'm always late to delivering my homework. I always like to be honest on these things. Landscapers for me was probably, I think, one of the best things I've ever done in my 20-year career. So if I was going to submit anything and ask people like the judges that are sat around the table to watch something, it's going to be that. This year, I submitted a series called The Gold, which I really liked, but it was a film emulation thing. And I was a bit in two minds. I mean, I've done some nice series in, Sex Ed and Top Boy and these shows, but, it's kind of been done there. And so, I thought I'll put The Gold in, but it was a bit of a struggle. And I thought, it's film emulation. If I was a judge, I'd be like, oh, another film emulation. Everyone does film emulation. Add a bit of grain, add a radial blur on it. And I'm really happy with it. It looks great. I have people messaging saying it looks great. Is it as good as Landscapers? No. And I think rightly it didn't get nominated. But actually, FilmLight were very supportive, and they said, "Are you going to enter something this year?" And I didn't reply. And then they emailed me again, "Are you going to enter something this year? You nominated last year." And I looked at the stuff, and I thought, if it's going to be anything, it's going to be The Gold. But it didn't get nominated. So I think that it's important. I probably would not. I might submit Top Boy because it's been a whole 5 seasons for anyone who knows the show, and I've been on it since 2011. But people shouldn't judge it on that. But you want them to judge it. You want them to judge it on the whole 5 seasons of what's been an amazing journey. But I can't ask people to do that. It
doesn't work that way. Yeah,
it doesn't work like that. But I think it's important not to waste your own time or those of the judges. And I don't. So that's why with The Gold, I was a bit like two minds, because I loved it, but I didn't think it was as original as it needed to be nominated. So I wasn't surprised when it wasn't. So. I was absolutely right. I mentioned the other awards. Yes, the production companies do put you forward, but of course the FilmLight one you don't. And although I'm confident, I do find these things writing about how I did some interesting curve all a bit cringy. I do feel a bit like, well, I dialed in some S curve, and then I put in a bit of blue in the shadows, and then I did a hue isolation. I don't know, something or other. And I find all of that quite difficult, because I don't know why. I just feel a bit like, oh, I'm ranting on for a page. Does anyone really give a shit? But and I suppose on Landscapers I did, but I don't know. So I find them all quite difficult to do.
I guess you can talk more conceptually than specific about technique, can't you?
Yeah, I'm never sure. And I think that's the thing, if I was judging, I find that bit quite difficult. So I'm interested actually to hear from the judges, because I've never been a judge on anything. what really stood out to them in terms of the work is there, but what about the supporting documentation? What stood out to those that have judged, the other three on the call, as being really interesting? Did they want to see the techniques and understand this? I mean, I've done screen grabs a couple of times of the controls, but is that interesting? Or do you go into the refinement of the Kodak stock and the, we want to try and do this particular, stock that you pick out or grains? What I'd like to know what is bullshit and actually what.
Well, let's
really
put it to the three judges that we've got here. Amit, maybe you could start, because the one thing I'd like to comment on was that last year, in all the categories, the winners did film emulation of some sort. I'm not saying that they all looked the same; they didn't, and they were all very good. But I thought it was interesting that that they were all film emulation winners. So tell us, what do you like in the
supporting material,
and what are you looking for?
Well, I need to tell you guys, first of all, there was like as much talk about the supporting material as the work itself. So people do demand it. They care a lot about it. And there's a massive array. Actually, we ended up speaking a lot about trying to standardize the supporting material up to a point. The biggest mistake one can make, I would say, and a lot of other judges said, is put logarithmic there. Like putting a log image there, it's actually almost done like, looking down at us, like, come on, man, we can't judge anything from a log. And sorry, but like there's also area of support you get from the production and the post-production house that you're working and all that we all understand that. Don't get me wrong, we didn't judge based on the supporting material or the lack of. But there was a lot of talk about it, and the common sense was like, don't put log up there. Like, let's try to come up with, is it gonna be a like standard compression the camera manufacturer provides, like Rec 709 or something, like we discussed that. Then, some people get the colorist way ahead of time during the pre-production and work a lot, camera lots. A show lot or something, then what do we do with that? Like then Record 709 can look totally off, so, the common sense was like overall, maybe dailies, like comparing to the look with the dailies. We read everything in the descriptions and we watch everything supporting material wise. And some people, especially in the commercials, like they did an incredible supporting material, like all this, flashy YouTube passes and all that, like pass by pass, I did this, then I balanced it, then I graded again. That was also, like every other day, we ended up watching them and talking about them. So yes, supporting material is extremely crucial. And it does affect a lot the judging process and all that. Yeah, that's what I can say about that.
Okay, yeah, and I think we just make the comment that we're well past showing log images as a comparison. I mean, log images are just in the wrong space and should never be used as a comparison tool. It's kind of 10 years out of date really now. So I think that's a good lesson for everybody watching.
And it almost comes across as a show off, almost, like this is what I've done, like it does kind of bounce back.
But it actually doesn't tell you anything, because it's like comparing, I don't know, HDR with SDR. It's just not a comparison. Anna, how did you find judging?
It's hard, honestly. I try not to get too caught up on the material itself. I enjoyed more reading about it, like in words, a little description and talking about it and whatnot, as opposed to just seeing images. Those are cool too, of course, but I felt like I could get a better sense from people by like seeing what they were writing. But it was hard because, again, color can be such a subjective thing. So even for all of us to agree, and what was like considered like good or not, or like whatever, like it's complicated. So I try really to just focus on the end product and just see like how it made me feel, how, you know, it looked overall, as opposed to getting to, you know, into the details of like what it looked before or like references and whatnot, because we know that so much can change throughout the process, whether that is, you know, they start with a reference and they shoot and they just change their mind in the middle of it, or, you know, what, anything can happen really. So yeah, but it was hard because there was a lot of, you know, beautiful work out there. And at the same time, I don't know if you guys felt that, but there's a little bit of like an imposter syndrome when I'm looking at this all this work, and I'm like, am I qualified to judge that? Like, this is the, you know, like you feel a little bit like, who am I to fucking say that this is good and this is not good, you know? But it was a great experience overall.
And what did you go for? Did you go for that lasting impression at the end, or were you able to somehow separate, well, that's just really good cinematography and not so great in the color, or you know, there's a lot of visual effects on that one. How do you separate the skill of the colorist from everything else?
Honestly, it is hard to separate, but at the end of the day, it is a relationship, right? Cinematographer, colorist. So yes, there's a lot of people that had an amazing starting point from the material and the cinematographer and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it is a collaboration. So I can't hate on the colorist for, you know, not starting from a shitty footage, right? It's still an amazing like relationship and exchange between them. And again, we don't know how soon the colorist was involved in the process. Was it like before they started shooting, or, you know, like did they help like come up with some sort of like shooting LUTs or anything like that? So yeah.
How about you, Wade? Do you feel the same? Did you have favorites that you couldn't quite put your finger on, or was there something more technical that you were looking for?
I think it's interesting when you judge, because you do have these things like you know that a lot of this stuff was entered with amazing cinematography and amazing art direction and all these. So you are trying to look, what did the colorist bring to the table? And for me, I started with just watching the spot and how did I feel at the end of it, and was the color driving the story forward? So I think that's one thing. And we had a bit of discussion towards the end, like, okay, was that color good or was it distracting? Like, it might have been really unique, but was it just, did it take the story this way when the story was supposed to go that way? And I think for me, that was part of what I was looking for. And did it make me, how did I feel at the end of watching the piece? Then go back and read the stuff. Okay, how did you do it? What did you get? What was your supporting material? It's not helpful when somebody just goes, here's where we started, here's where we finished, and just put them side by side, because you're like, I don't know what you did in there. Like, it's so flat and terrible. And was all that shape and mood actually in there? Or did you create that? And, in terms of the story wise, am I looking at the right spot? Am I getting the story from the color? Things like that. So it's an interesting process. And I found it interesting to listen to cinematographers and how they viewed it versus how colorists viewed the same sort of thing. And I changed my mind on a few of the pieces that where I thought I was going to rank them at the end after the discussion, because I thought people brought up really interesting points. I went back and I watched it again. I was like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I see this, and now I see that in that one. So it was really helpful to talk to other people, because I think it is an isolating thing to sit and judge it on yourself out of context and just try to work out, is this better? But to Anna's point there, like, you're judging someone's work here. Like, it's kind of like, it is a bit intimidating. You want to be fair to the work. You want to make sure you paid enough attention, that you watched it entirely, you read the supporting material, and you gave it the respect that it deserves. So, there's a lot that goes into it. It was a lot of time taken by everyone who was viewing it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you kind of have to come up with something that you think was the best one, ranking it above something else. And for me, that just came down to, did I feel that it completed the package? Did it really make me feel what I was supposed to feel, look where I was supposed to look? And was it technically good? Like, I was definitely big on technical marks, because, I think that's something that is really underrated. Anyone can make a good look on one shot. Can you be consistent across the whole piece? And can it drive the story? And for me, that a lot of that is technical. Balancing, getting it all to look and the subtleties that go with it. So that's really what I was kind of focused on throughout. And then, as I say, talking to everyone kind of helped me to cement my choices.
And how did that work on the technical? Did you find that you were eliminating certain projects because you saw something that you didn't feel was, continuous, or was that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There was stuff where I was looking at like the highlights, the consistency of highlights and consistency of skies and consistency of shadows and things. And, you know, like, was I getting drawn out? Did I notice it first time? Because if that's the case, then I found that technically is not as good. Creatively, it might have been good, like it might have been an interesting look, but it wasn't repeated. So I got distracted by it. So I was sort of like, if I got to the end of a piece and I was like, wow, that was really cool, then go back, review it again if I wanted to, or review supporting material. I made notes on every piece that I entered before I went back and entered the score to make sure that I wasn't going too easy or too hard, and being kind of, you know, trying to be very thorough. Because as I say, like, people took time to do this and to put all the information. I wanted to respect that and be thoughtful about the process.
And the standard is high, so it's no disgrace to not win.
Yeah, for sure.
Thomas, I know your work is particularly good when it comes to concept, where the color matches the project very nicely. What are your feelings on that? Is that something that you managed to discuss with the cinematographer in advance, or that's something that comes to you and you work on it from there?
Thank you, Kevin. I mean, one just quick thing I would like, just on that previous point, is, you know, I'm someone that receives CVs quite a lot, and I wondered whether or not, you know, the FilmLight Awards should actually standardize the entry method, because I feel like, could there be a potential that those that are better at writing supporting documentation, who are maybe better in that type of space, are at an advantage over somebody who isn't so articulate, or maybe has dyslexia, or isn't sure exactly how to format that submission. I think it could be prudent, and I've not been a judge, so I don't know, but it's almost like I would want them, I think Ahmed touched on this earlier, almost a standardization of, here are the questions, what are your answers, and no more than 100 words, because if you can't get it done in 100 words per question, then you're probably over-egging it. I haven't been a judge, but I know, as someone who receives CVs, they are wildly different, and I often have to look past that, because some people are just not so great and don't have the support. So yeah, maybe we can come on to that. When it comes to the concept of cinematography, it is very collaborative, particularly collaborative with people you've worked with before. Not so collaborative with people you've not worked with before. So I think I will often read a script and visualize it, and then you'll see the offline and you think, this is what I want to try and do to it, as opposed to bring a look that maybe I brought 2 shows ago and I think, oh, this one works quite well, I'll just throw that on again. You know, get to a point where you get bored if you do the same thing all the time. You know, I always want to try and do something different. Can't always do it for every project. I mean, in the world of, you know, high-end TV drama, you've got to serve the story. I'm not selling a cereal or a car. I can't, you know, in that example, you're selling the car or the cereal, and I have to make sure that everybody, there isn't a barrier between you, the viewer, and the actors. So although the grade on Top Boy has been quite extreme at times, you've still got to relate to Shane and Sully in the series. There's no getting away from that. So I think it's often a bit like a first date. I think I might have said this before, I never said on this, but when a DP and director first come in, you're kind of like building the rapport. Let's assume you've not worked with them before. And then you want to hear their vision, because they're the cinematographer and director, and ultimately you're working in their department. You know, it can times that colorists can start thinking that, you know, they've got an ego that, oh, it's all about, you know, how we're going to apply the look to this. You are ultimately still working under the cinematographer's guidance. But a great cinematographer is a collaborative cinematographer. You know, when we saw Eric Wilson on Landscapers, it was so collaborative and so wonderful as an experience, where he said, I'd like to try and do this. Can you offer something up? And then can we go further? And that is what's amazing about the job when that happens. And then other people will come in and go, no, this is the look I want. I was pretty happy with the standard log C4 to Arri, you know, the new Arri 35. I loved it. Can we just do a bit of CDLs and a bit of balancing? And that's fine, but it's a different collaboration. So I think it's horses for courses. It's all about people skills and, you know, letting them do the talking and then inputting and building the trust.
What about when you get to series 5? Is there a temptation to let it grow and sort of develop, or do you feel like you've got to keep that consistency so that season 1 cuts with season 5?
I don't. I mean, Top Boy has changed every season, and all credit to the production company, because this actually is probably led by the production company more than the the director and DP. You know, when someone comes onto a season 2, they are often told, "We loved it. It was successful. Don't mess with it. We liked it. You've been given the job. Don't mess it up." With Top Boy, all credit to Cowboy Films. They're like, you know, you will bring Top Boy to it. So, you know, as long as it's not completely different. Well, in fact, they've never even said that. They've just said, go for it. So first season was different, second season, they have all been different. And for me, in my career, I love that. I mean, I just do not want to be doing 5 seasons that all look the same. It's boring. And that's why people do commercials, because then they're doing something different all the time. I would hate it if all the stuff that we did looked exactly the same, and all the series. There should be a development, and even there should be development like the score. I always think the grade's a bit like the music score. It should change throughout the episode, throughout the season. And I think that you're doing the audience a disservice if it all looks the same. Because, yeah, you might have proved you're a great match grader, and you might have proved, oh, we got a great show last, so we just stuck that across all of it. It's really boring. And actually, you know, that was having the same piece of music all the way through the whole thing. Having the variety is fantastic, and being able to really push it when you can, I think, is really exciting in certain scenes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I mean, if I can come back to you as the cinematographer on the panel, how did that affect your judging? Were you able to appreciate where the colorist was working with the cinematographer? Were there situations where you felt that the cinematography and the color were not working so well together?
Well, I was hoping to be honest. You know, like there was like technical question earlier on. You know, like I was actually hoping to find more of that. You know, like clear miscommunication between the cinematographer and the colorist, or, you know, visible keys and masks, and, you know, inconsistency highlights, as Wade pointed out, and all that. I was all really itching for these because this is my first time judging color, and I was very anxious like everyone else. You know, how do you judge something so subjective? And then when I started the process, I find out that's not going to be the case. No, the work was really, really good. That was really surprising, high in numbers and in quality. You know, it was maddening. So no, it seemed all in harmony. Everybody was doing their work really professionally. So no, it was all great work. So it was getting harder and harder to judge. I mean, one thing I try to do is like, you know, like this whole thing, you know, as I've been saying from the beginning of this conversation, like I'm a very extremely pro DIT and colorist director of photography. So when I'm getting a job, when I'm getting a gig, I try to talk to production right off the hand, very first conversation. I'm like, I would love to start working with a colorist and a DIT right away, set up a really smooth workflow from day one to the very delivery day. And, you know, like we should promote that, you know, like we should really promote that. That was actually another factor that I conceived before the process started. I'm like, let me read the descriptions and try to favor actually productions, to be exact, that favors pre-production color work. You know, like let's promote that. Let's try to change that mindset. That was an awful idea because, you know, like few weeks down the line, I find out that's very biased and insanely not, you know, equal rights to everyone. Because, you know, if a colorist is hired later on and did a fantastic job, why do I cut his points? You know, like what's wrong with that? So I had to actually go back hours of work and erase that like self-inflicted factor and reviewed everything. You know, that was not so much fun. But yes, overall, I find out the colorist is doing their jobs really professionally. And because of obviously the flow of the information, you know, the older tricks are not hidden anymore. So everybody is really up to the game. So yes, it was insanely tough project. But you see when the relationship is superior. We didn't find too many easy targets, you know, to point fingers towards. But what we found is really advanced relationship. You know, I'm going to use Thomas's example, like it's a first date type of thing. Yes, it always is. But also the process I always promote is a key to that too. You know, me as a cinematographer, I love shooting camera tests, not only for technical purposes, but to create flow within the crew. You know, same thing goes here too. You know, if we start the relationship between the director of photography and the colorist early on, they have more time to develop that relationship, second guess themselves more, and you know, more fruitful relationship will come out of that. So I'm a strong believer of that too, and to speed up that process. And yes, that's all I can say about that for now.
Cool. And I mean, FilmLight have done a wonderful job of organizing all of this. How did you find the entries? Do you find that they are reasonably standardized, or is there a very diverse quality of supporting material and information around the back? I mean, for example, I don't know, do you always get an ungraded and a graded version? No.
No.
No, there was a vast difference between them. Some were just nothing. Here's the entry, and you're like, okay, cool. And then others, it was like, all right, let me sit back, get a coffee, and read their document. Some of them had huge PDFs. Some was just a few little words, a paragraph. Some were 2 videos. Like, so it wasn't standard at all. So it's hard because, like like we were saying before, like sometimes people are better at doing that, or maybe you buy something because there was more of a breakdown as to how they did it. But I don't know that there's a way that you can necessarily make it even for every entry. But it definitely would. I found it great when there was some sort of material that described. I didn't necessarily need, I did this, I did this, I did this, but just more of a brief overview. It was like, this is what we were trying to achieve. We were looking for this sort of thing. The reference was this style of genre or whatever. And so it kind of gave you an understanding as to what they were looking for. Because when you judge something in isolation, you go, yeah, that might look good, but was that what they were trying to get to? Was that the colorist? Was that the cinematographer? Was it? So I think that was the kind of the tricky thing to sift through. But the entries just varied greatly from what the type of grades on them and also the supporting documents for them.
Can we say then, for anybody that is entering for an award, that supporting material definitely helps? Can't work against you, can it?
Yeah, I think that's the kind of the unique thing about this. Any other show that I've judged in the past, there's never been supporting material. So it really is isolation. It just pops up on your screen, you watch it, give it a score. Next one, next one, next one. So this one, I think the thought process behind it, and because again, it's only one entry, you really have to think about it. So people kind of thought, is this the best work? And then they were really kind of passionate about what they wrote about things, and sort of, some of them gave us screenshots of what they'd done on the, in their software. Others gave us references as to what they were like, had talked about with the director and the DP beforehand in terms of visual references. Others, there was a breakdown. Here's my different layers. And then, some stuff, it was just like, there you go, judge it. So it was a mixed bag for sure, but it was great to be a part of and to see different workflows as well, like people's thought process, how they got there and what they tried to do and stuff. I thought was really interesting.
Very cool, very cool. We're quite a way through, so what I'd like to do is turn our attention to Camerimage itself, and what your thoughts on Camerimage are, and perhaps a little bit of advice for people going for the first time this year. Anna, perhaps you'd like to start.
Damn, an advice. I think honestly, intention. Anything that you do with intention, you can't go wrong. Like really put the thought into what you're, putting it out there, why you like it, and why you're doing it, what you're doing, and submitting some of that material that we like to read and go through. But yeah, like I said, you can't do anything wrong, but you're actually doing it intentionally. It is a really good award to be a part of. It is pretty real. A lot of legit people participating in it, judging it, behind it, supporting it. So.
And did you get to see many screenings last year?
You mean at the Camerimage?
At Camerimage, yeah.
I did actually. I mean, we had to kind of rush a little bit and run out of the screening because we had to go to places. Um, that sounds ominous, but it's not. We just had, to kind of follow like FilmLight people and whatnot. But so this time I'm spending a few more extra days so I can actually enjoy the festival and sit, on the movies, sit after to like listen to the cinematographers Q&As and whatnot. So I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit of a different experience this time.
Indeed. Last year was my first time at Camerimage, and I was horrified. I had plans to see lots and lots of films. I think I saw about 2 over the week, for exactly the reason you state, that there was always other things to go to and people to meet, as it were. It's quite a busy time. Thomas, what about you? Have you got particular films you're interested in seeing, or it's not really about the screenings for you?
There are some really good films actually, and I was looking through the list earlier, and Glazer's new film, I've not seen it. I didn't go to that. Also, there's actually quite big hitters. We've got some big films in. Will I see them at this festival? No, I might just wait to see them back here in the UK, because for me, Camerimage, what I will say is it's very difficult to get tickets to these screenings. They sell out very, very quickly, and I think that's the only downside about it. I go there to see people who I haven't seen for some time. I'm hoping it will be a very busy festival, because the industry generally across all sectors at the moment is in a downturn. Certainly in the UK, I suspect it's the same in Europe and the US, obviously with the strikes. So I think it's a great chance to connect with people, which is what, to me, is the most important thing. I can go to screenings of the films here in my own time. I sit in a dark room all the time. So I personally don't go to the festival to watch the films, although if I might go and see, obviously, Glazers, and there's a couple of others actually in the list that I've heard are very good from people that have seen them. So anything that I hear is good, I obviously want to go and see it. But I think you need to find out what the parties are. Find out where the bars are, and get out there and meet some great cinematographers, very friendly people, and enjoy it. I think that's the key thing. But if you think you're going to be able to see loads of films, you need to be in that queue, on that app. I mean, it drives me mad. I just, can't be.
Yeah, I should mention for anybody that hasn't been there that you can only book the screenings the day before. And as Thomas says, you have to be up pretty early to be on the list. But it is worth turning up if you really want to see something. There's people book and then get caught in a meeting. So there's often an opportunity to get there at the last minute as well. Wade, how about you? A lot of meetings?
Yeah, I had a great time last year, and we got to see a few things. You're right. It is really like, okay, what am I going to see? Quickly get on that. That one's gone. Okay, try the next one and things. I found it really interesting to stay afterwards and listen to the cinematographers. For me, that's the greatest thing about this festival, is it's us like-minded people getting together to talk about the industry and to meet and build friendships. Because other festivals, it's all about the stars, it's about the director, it's that sort of thing. It's all the above the line people that are taking the limelight there, and not that we need the limelight, but it's nice that this is focused towards cinematographers and technical people in the industry. So you get to meet a lot of those people, and it's a more accessible festival to go to because of that. There was a lot of great things. We got to meet people at pubs afterwards and functions, and while you're waiting in the line for the movie, you're talking to people, and it's a really fun festival to be around and to be a part of. And because it's in a smaller town, it's very compact. You run into people out in the street, and you're having a chat, or you go, let's grab a drink here or there. So it's kind of like you're on vacation for a week with a bunch of like-minded people, and being able to see movies, go to award shows, and also check out some of the new gear as well in the hall that they have there.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, the presentations after the screenings are just invaluable, and listening to cinematographers talk, directors talk, both new and old, it's a fantastic opportunity. Ahmed, what are your thoughts? Is it nice to be able to rub shoulders with your peers and hear their new ideas?
I mean, it always is. I love the town for its devotion to cinematography overall, but unfortunately, I've never been. So I
Oh,
have
really?
no, nothing, no, bad karma. I always end up working at this time of the year. So no, never.
No
I'm
shame in
dead
working.
curious about it. Yeah, exactly, exactly.
You have to try to go, man. Eat some pierogies, you know, some beet soup.
Yes, this year I was really close, and no, again, I lined up with the gig. So no, unfortunately not.
The other good thing I'd say about it is it's affordable. And of course, when you're starting out or even experienced, there's always the lure of Cannes, isn't there? There's always a glass of rosé in Cannes, and then you get there and it's 15 euros. At least you can go to Poland, eat and drink, and it doesn't cost you a fortune. Yeah, I mean, you've got to get on the 5 a.m. flight out of Luton, which is not ideal, but I'm sure it's the same anyway. You've got to probably make changes to get from the US or, or Canada, you're going to have to change flights. But once you get there, it's affordable. It's very leveling. I think Wade's point is absolutely bang on there, that there's a level to it that you can just chat to people. And that is quite unique, that it's so international and affordable and accessible to people. And that's why it's such a great festival. And I hope that it stays the same, because of course what tends to happen is that changes. Then suddenly Sony, Arri, and all the rest of them, they start to make it more exclusive. You can't get into any of the screenings because everyone's on it at 8:01 in the morning. And then actually it loses its sparkle. I don't know how you fix that, but most festivals start to fail because they lose that and they don't get big enough, or whatever.
I think one thing that's happened that's interesting is the increased number of colorists that go there. So it's essentially, let's face it, it's a cinematography show, but it's not like, say, the BSC show or something like that. And I think the German colorists are very closely associated with the German cinematography group. And for some years, there was a European-funded post-degree course, Upgrade, which some of you may have heard of. And they always did a presentation, a colorist presentation at Camerimage. And they had people like Charles Poynton there. And that sort of set a precedent. And then FilmLight having the awards there is really, really nice. And I heard this year, I've been invited on a panel this year, which is the German cinematography group with the German colorists. And they have a guest appearance by satellite from LA of Steve Yedlin talking about look development. So I do recommend to colorists that, as Thomas says, it's very affordable compared to a lot of the other shows. It's not so hard to get hotel rooms as it is at IBC and things like that. And so it is becoming more and more important for colorists that are looking to meet and greet and learn. Absolutely. Okay, should probably wrap it up there. But thank you all for some great insight into applying for the awards and from the judging side of things, and for Camerimage. Appreciate all your time. This will be up on YouTube, so immediately as we finish, it's there for everybody to review. And see you at the next one.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys.